Hello, welcome back. You're with Ryan, your registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. Why does cortisol make us gain weight? And frankly, why does cortisol set us up for problems down the road with our overall health? In previous videos, I've discussed the many factors involved in weight loss, and cortisol is certainly one of them. Let's first start by understanding a little bit about cortisol and what it's trying to do. Cortisol is basically our stress hormone that is released from our adrenal glands, and it normally is involved anytime that we are dealing with either physical or emotional stress. Now, cortisol is actually a very important hormone. It's also referred to as our fight or flight hormone, basically meaning that if we need to run from a dangerous situation or attack a dangerous situation, it is something that helps prepare us with quick energy and the ability to do sometimes miraculous feats, like be able to lift something really heavy that you didn't think you previously could. So cortisol, as long as it's kept in check, is actually a very necessary hormone that has a lot of benefits to our survival. The problem is most of the time in society nowadays, we are not faced with dire end scenarios, or we're not really facing a life or death situation. And so cortisol, however, can still be constantly elevated, and it can cause a lot of weight gain and other health problems. So I wanted to discuss why that is, and then in future videos go into how you can help manage cortisol. So again, cortisol is our stress hormone, and it is going to be involved or elevated anytime that you're dealing with physical or emotional stress. So our emotional stress could frankly be our own thoughts that run through our brain, our dissatisfaction with who we are as a person, whether it be depression or grief, anxiety, perfectionism, any of those thoughts or feelings, being frustrated about a work colleague, or getting angry in traffic, not being able to manage your emotional connection towards certain things, you are going to be raising your cortisol level. Physical stressors could be anything such as just frankly joint pain and a lot of just discomfort from maybe having a back problem or a cut that's not healing. Other physical stressors that are important to realize are things like excessive exposure to toxicity, radiation, chemicals, poor food quality, poor water quality. All that could result in a physical stress. Inflammation, which is low-grade chronic inflammation within our body from too many free radicals, and from what's called oxidative stress, which basically means that you have more free radicals running around than antioxidants to stop them. That is considered kind of like a physical stress on the body. As a matter of fact, when you are sleep deprived, that is thought of as probably a physical stress on the body, and it's thought that getting less than 6 hours of sleep per night could actually invoke an elevation in cortisol up to 50% higher than your baseline levels. So that just shows you how important sleep is, especially when we go into what is causing the weight gain. Some other physical stressors are stimulants and excessive caffeine. It's thought that 200 milligrams of caffeine can raise your cortisol levels by 30% within an hour of taking in that high intake of caffeine. So you want to be careful about constant cortisol surges. And constant cortisol surges, the stresses of life, financial pressures, all this alarming, fear, anxiety is definitely why some people end up going 2-3 years down the road and realizing, how the heck did I gain all this weight? I really wasn't eating all that differently, and now here I am in my 30s with a lot of greater stresses of life, and I'm having a hard time losing the weight, and I keep gaining the weight. So what is the reason for why that is, now that we know what cortisol is and what can cause elevations in it? Well, probably the most significant reason why cortisol has a weight gain aspect related to it is probably because of its impact on various hormones. So cortisol, when it goes up, it has an inverse relationship with other very important hormones. One of them referred to as DHEA, which stands for dehydroepiandrosterone, which is a hormone that is like the precursor or required to help make testosterone. So if your DHEA is low, you're not making adequate testosterone. That is significant from a weight gain perspective. DHEA is also important in the activation of making active thyroid hormone. So if your thyroid hormone is not in the active state or can't get activated because of low DHEA, you have low thyroid, and that sets you up for weight gain. DHEA is also important in your immune system health and the production of growth hormone, and therefore you don't rest or recover at night. Insomnia is a sign that you are probably dealing with chronic stress, and that your cortisol is probably off. Getting migraines could be a sign of chronic stress. Midday fatigue, chronic stress. Nighttime eating syndrome, chronic stress. Having excessive sugar and salt cravings could be signs of chronic stress. And those would be maybe some symptoms, but probably one of the biggest reasons that cortisol causes weight gain could very well be because of what it's doing to some very important hormones, namely testosterone, growth hormone, and your thyroid hormone, and also the inability of your immune system to properly cope and to fight infections, and you're set up to getting ill more often. So that's one reason. Another reason why cortisol can cause weight gain is because of what it's trying to trigger and to happen in the body. So when you raise your cortisol levels, it basically is trying to prepare your body to be able to lift something miraculously or run from a tiger. But frankly, we normally don't have a tiger that we're trying to run from. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to release adequate stores of energy. And one of the ways it does that is to elevate the sugar into our blood. That's why it makes your appetite increase, and it wants you to eat food. But also what it can do is it can release sugar by breaking down your muscles in a process called gluconeogenesis. And the more you're breaking down your muscle tissue, the less muscle mass you have, and therefore your metabolism drops. And now the even worse thing about it is that when your body releases these sugar stores and you're not actually using them because you're not actually running or needing to lift something or to survive from something, it circulates around and then restores it, and it typically restores it into your midsection, and even more so it could be stored around your organs, which is referred to as visceral adiposity, as opposed to subcutaneous, which is right underneath your skin. And then that actually is more prone to a lot of chronic illness down the road, especially type 2 diabetes and other health issues. And the reason it stores it in the midsection is because it's a lot more easy for the body then to have to break it down. So here, because of a constant cortisol spike and surges throughout the day from maybe, again, emotional or physical stress, you are actually wasting your muscle tissue, and that great lean muscle tissue is actually being relocated as fat into the midsection, and that's not good. Another reason why cortisol can cause weight gain, in addition to the hormones and the breakdown of muscle to release sugar, is because of what is referred to as insulin resistance. Cortisol causes insulin resistance, and insulin is the hormone that is going to promote fat storage, and insulin also shuts off fat burning. And when you're insulin resistant, that means that the insulin you do make in response to food, it doesn't work. And so when you eat too many foods that spike your insulin levels don't come down, and actually hormonally you're more inclined to want to gain weight and store fat as opposed to breaking it down. So we certainly need to do the best that we can to manage our cortisol levels and the unnecessary production of it. And I've already said already that you have caffeine as one area that you could unnecessarily be spiking your cortisol. You have sleep, and the quality of sleep is a way you can manage your cortisol better. And then obviously your approach to your physical and emotional exposure to stress. All those things need to be managed, and those will be videos that I put together next. But I wanted to use this particular conversation to give you some of the underlying mechanisms as to why cortisol makes you fat and actually destroys your health. The main reason, great influence on hormones. It depresses a lot of hormones as cortisol is unnecessarily released. It breaks down muscles, and then these muscle tissue gets restored in the midsection, which is not good. It stores it as fat there. And also cortisol causes insulin resistance and makes you hormonally more inclined to gain weight and reluctantly to lose weight. So we've got to manage our stress and learn tactics to cope with things a little bit better. And that's what some future videos will be on.